All right, everyone, this is section 2.2, conditional statements. Just take a look at the do now. It says the company that prints the bumper stickers at the left and below accidentally reworded the original statement and printed the sticker 3 different ways. Suppose the original bumper sticker is true. Are the other bumper stickers true or false? And explain. All right, so I'm curious to see your responses. So take your time, write those down under the do now, and I look forward to reading them when you submit your work. Resume the video when you are ready. Okay. Vocabulary terms. Conditional is an if-then statement, okay? An if-then statement. We're going to be working with a lot of these today and tomorrow. Hypothesis. You guys should know this word already, okay? But in geometry, it means something a little different, all right? It is the part P, so we label it as P, following the word if. Okay, and again, we're going to break this all down in a second, so don't worry if this is a little bit confusing to you at this point in time. The conclusion is the part Q following the word then. Okay? The way we write conditional statements, if-then statements, notice there's an arrow here, okay, is exactly like this. P with an arrow going to Q. And what that means is if P, then Q. So if P happens, then Q happens. Okay. Identifying the hypothesis and conclusion. So we just wrote the hypothesis is variable P and the conclusion is variable Q. So here is your statement. If the animal is a robin, then the animal is a bird. Okay, if we go back, the hypothesis follows the word if, the conclusion follows the word then. So your hypothesis is if the animal is a robin, the hypothesis is the animal is a robin. The conclusion follows the word then, the animal is a bird. All right, so why don't you take a second, pause the video, and try the next one, and then resume to check your accuracy. If the animal is a Labrador, then the animal is a dog. Hypothesis, the animal is a Labrador. Conclusion, the animal is a dog. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, so how can you write the following statement as a conditional? We are given a statement, and we need to break it down into a conditional, a hypothesis and a conclusion, and then write the statement using if-then. Okay, so we have vertical angles are congruent. So we have two pieces, vertical angles and are congruent. Your hypothesis is vertical angles. The conclusion is that they are congruent. So if we were to write this, if P then Q, if two angles are vertical, then your conclusion would be the angles are congruent. All right, so that's how we write conditional statements. Finding the truth value of a conditional. Okay, so 1, we're going to determine if the conditional is true or false. And 2, if it's false, we're just going to provide a counterexample. So the first one says, if a woman is Italian, then she is European. Truth value. Well, that would be true. If you're Italian, either yourself or your family is from Italy, which is in Europe. Counterexample, none. We don't need any because it is true. If a number is divisible by 3, then that number is odd. The truth value, well, this is false. The reason being is because 12 is divisible by 3, and 12 is an even number. Okay, so conditional statements can either be true or false. Okay, related conditional statements. Now we can have negations, okay, is the opposite of a statement. The symbol of a negation is this little squiggle line right there. So if I have a squiggle and then a P, remember P is our hypothesis. So this means not P. So whenever you see the negation symbol, it means not. Okay, it changes the value, the positivity. So for example, the sky is blue. If I'm going to negate that statement, it would be the sky is not blue. Negations are fairly simple. Okay. Now, these definitions are ones you're going to need to know. Conditional statements are what we just reviewed. That's our original form. If P, then Q. Okay? If P, then Q. Converse means we flip the hypothesis and the conclusion. So instead of if P, then Q, this becomes if Q, then P. The inverse of a statement means we negate the hypothesis and the conclusion. So if not P, then not Q. And contrapositive, this is always the one that people forget. It means both converse and inverse, to flip and negate. So if not Q, then not P. Now there's no trick to remembering this. This is just regular memorization of 4 definitions, okay? Conditional is your original form, P then Q. Converse means we flip it, Q then P. Inverse means we negate it, not P then not Q. Contrapositive, not Q then not P. That's a flip and a negate. All right, we're going to practice these and kind of put it into a visual for us. So here's our hypothesis. The figure is a square. The conclusion is the figure is a quadrilateral. So our conditional statement, our original form, P then Q, would be if the figure is a square, then the figure is a quadrilateral. Okay, the converse statement is Q then P. If the figure is a quadrilateral, then the figure is a square. The inverse statement would be not P, then not Q. If the figure is not a square, then the figure is not a quadrilateral. Then a contrapositive statement means to flip and negate Q and P. So not Q, then not P. If the figure is not a quadrilateral, then the figure is not a square. Okay. I know there's a lot to write down there. Feel free to pause the video if you need. Exit slip. What are the hypothesis and conclusion of the following statement? Okay, the statement is residents of Suffolk County live in New York. So your hypothesis is what? Let's break this down into 2 sections. We're going to leave the if out for now. The hypothesis is residents of Suffolk County. The conclusion is live in New York. I should write that in blue. Sorry about that, guys. 1 second. Okay, so let's write them as a conditional statement. If P, then Q. So if you reside in Suffolk County, then you live in New York. So now what they want you to do is find the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive of that statement that we just wrote, the conditional statement. So the converse means to flip, okay? So this would say, if you live in New York, then you reside in Suffolk County. The inverse would be to negate both statements. Not P, then not Q. So if you do not reside in Suffolk, then you do not live in New York. The contrapositive is to flip and negate both the hypothesis and the conclusion. So this would say, if you do not live in New York, then you do not live in Suffolk County. Okay, guys? We're going to practice more conditional statements, converses, inverses, and contrapositives in your next lesson. Thanks for watching.